We have the Manchin Toomey bill, which you may or may not know it by that name, but that's the two senators who have a bill. It's interesting. It's being called a universal background check, and the media is talking about it. They were both, Manchin Toomey were both on the Sunday shows, the TV talk shows this morning about that. And if you watched them, you're thinking, well, that's not what I expected them to say. Well, there's a story, and then there's another story here. And the story, and this is going to be the first time this gets out nationally live. The inside story is this background check bill, if you will call it that, was actually, let me ask you this question. What if you could slip one of your guys in to the room where they're writing this bill? One of your gun guys. What if you could slip a gun guy in there? And what if the gun guy could essentially write the bill? What if? Well, you know the Second Amendment Foundation. This is the fabulous group that did bring the McDonald case all the way to the Supreme Court, landmark case, solidifying the Heller decision, got us a huge win there, has won dozens of huge lawsuits for gun rights around the country. Joining us right now to talk about what's going on is Alan Gottlieb, the founder and the head of the Second Amendment Foundation. Alan, how are you?
I'm fine, Tom. Thanks. Good to be with you.
If you look behind me, there's a lynch mob waiting for you.
I'm not sure there's such a lynch mob. My internet traffic is people are starting to think what we're doing makes a lot of sense.
It's interesting. I'm seeing the same
wearing
thing.
my hat as chairman of the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, not the foundation because it does not lobby.
Okay, so this is the Citizens Committee.
Our lobbyist, our attorney lobbyist, actually was in the room while this was being written. We influenced and helped write parts of this Manchin Toomey substitute bill, which would knock out the bad Schumer background check bill and put in one, quite frankly, that would ban a federal gun registry, would carry a 15-year prison term for anyone who violates it, that would protect and expand the number of pro-gun rights measures as well. And we have an agreement that an additional amendment supported by Manchin and Toomey will be offered to even make it better by making it possible to get federal firearms rights restored, negating the current Schumer legislation that blocks it. And if you read the bill, you'll see how it advances our cause. It contains things in it like interstate sale of handguns would become legal. You could buy a gun in any state as long as it's from a licensed dealer. It wouldn't have to just be your home state of residence. Mm-hmm. It would allow veteran gun rights restoration. It would give you more protections for traveling in states with firearms that tend to be restrictive. It would give you civil and criminal immunity and lawsuit protection if you sold a gun, and went through the FFL. It would give you a whole lot of other things as well. And quite frankly, it exempts this. This is when you talk about it being universal, and you said it was something that is not really universal. You're right. It's not. It exempts the sale and transfer of firearms between family members and friends, as well as sales outside any commercial venue from a background check. And if you have any kind of current state permit to own, use, or carry, there is no check done at all. Just a Form 4473 goes into a dealer file. It advances all kinds of gun rights things that would help us out. That we can add more amendments to it on the Senate floor. But unless this substituted Manchin Toomey amendment knocks out the bad Schumer one on the floor of Senate on Tuesday, we can't get any of these other pro-gun things added to it on top of that.
Okay,
but we're turning this into our Christmas tree and hanging our ornaments on it.
Okay, Alan, let me back up here. So what we've got is a bill by Schumer, which we don't like, and
Correct.
This Toomey Manchin bill, or Manchin Toomey bill, which, if I'm hearing you right, what you're saying is the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms essentially wrote this bill or was very instrumental in getting this written. You're calling this a pro-gun bill.
Yeah, I think we've turned this into a pro-gun bill. I mean, quite frankly, the provisions that are in this bill that protect gun rights, extend gun rights, expand, our rights, far exceed anything of a background check to begin with. And let's be honest about it. None of us want criminals and violent people, being able to easily go to a gun show or on the internet buying a firearm. It doesn't apply to any other private sales. It makes a whole lot of sense for us, and at the same time, we've loaded it with all kinds of things that we've never been able to pass Congress and get. And if we would get this, I mean, I want to see the expression of Barack Obama's face when he's forced to sign it if it becomes law.
All right, I tell you what, hold on, Alan. Got to take a break. When we come back, let's go through these one by one, because you listed a lot of stuff there that this bill has in it. We got a lot of people scratching their heads right now. How do you turn a gun control bill into a pro-gun bill? Well, maybe. Is that what just happened? 866-TALK-GUNS. We're talking with Alan Gottlieb from the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. This is big news.
Successful hunters know big bucks move early and late, often when it's too dark for common scopes. When that monster steps out, you might see him through the scope, but the crosshairs disappear. All that work and you can't take the shot. But with the Trijicon AccuPoint scope, you'll get the shot. Its bright aiming point glows in daylight or darkness. No batteries needed. AccuPoint scopes are water-resistant and nitrogen-filled, feature multi-layer coated lenses for the brightest image, and you can adjust brightness of the aiming point to match the conditions. Adding 10 or 15 minutes to each end of the day can double the magic moments when the trophies move. You can't hit the target if you can't see the sights. Trijicon AccuPoint scopes. Check out the different models at Trijicon.com or call 1-800-338-0563. Brilliant aiming solutions from Trijicon.
No matter what gun you have, you want it to hit harder, shoot faster and flatter, and be more accurate. You get all that with the ammunition from Double Tap. Double Tap's experts select the best bullets, then load them to higher velocities while keeping safe pressures. Shoot small groups. Shoot farther. Use custom hunting loads in your handgun or rifle. Even fire 2 projectiles with one shot. DoubleTapAmmo.com. That's DoubleTapAmmo.com.
If you remember right after Newtown, I kept saying, here's the thing you got to understand. Congress is going to do something. People said, oh, no, we're just going to say, no, we're going to stop them. And I said, they don't get elected to go up there and do nothing. It was interesting. This morning on one of the Sunday morning talk shows, I heard Kristen Gillibrand, and she made the statement, she says, we don't go up there to do nothing. So I think that's a baseline that you have to understand, is those people are there to do something. If they do nothing, well, you know what? They're going to do something. It's just as simple as that. We're talking with Alan Gottlieb from the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms about the Manchin Toomey bill, 2 senators. This is a substitute bill or amendment for what Chuck Schumer wants. Now, Alan, here's what I want to do. You listed a whole bunch of different things there that this bill has in it that are pro-gun in nature. I want to take them one at a time so we can digest them. First of all, you talked about what are these penalties you're talking about for the misuse of the data?
Well, right now, we have a prohibition on making this into a registration database, so to speak, for gun registry for the sales to licensed dealers now. But there's no penalties in the law. So if the government violates it, which a lot of us were concerned about, there's no penalty to anybody. Well, in this Manchin Toomey substitute, what would happen is if anybody, not just the federal government, by the way, or state law enforcement officials, federal officials, even the gun dealer, anybody who misused the registry or the 4473 forms to create a registry would face a 15-year prison sentence. It gives us protection. It gives us a way to go back and fight and hold people's feet to the fire if they ever misuse any of these records, which are, have always been basically, not for public consumption, not to be given to your local newspaper, not to create a federal registry with, but now there'll be teeth in this thing, and they can get a 13-year prison sentence if anybody tries to make this a gun registry. That's really important for us.
If somebody made it a gun registry and gave it to a newspaper, they could be facing 15 years in jail.
Yeah, or if the federal government tried to create a registry so they could come back later on and confiscate guns, they could face 15 years in prison. And that would apply even to Eric Holder, our Attorney General.
Oh, be still my heart. All right, now how about buying handguns across state lines? Because right now, you can buy a long gun in another state, but to buy a handgun, you can only buy it in the state in which you live. And this would change that?
Yes, it would change that. It would allow any of us to go to any of the states and buy a handgun from a licensed dealer in any state. Let's be honest about it. It's the same background check. It doesn't matter if it's in your resident state or in another state. They're all using the same NICS database. This has always burnt me, because why can't, if I go to another state to travel and I want to buy a handgun, why shouldn't I be able to do it? This now will allow all of us to do that and extend our rights to all 50 states.
Yeah, because that prohibition against buying a gun in other states came about long before we had a national NICS check, an instant NICS check. And they said, well, we can't check the records of those states because you're not in that state. Well, that should, as you say, that should have gone away many years ago. So
yeah,
that wouldn't make sense.
We will get that gone, and again, that extends our rights.
Okay, how about
things, right now? You've done stories on your show on veterans coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and
right.
because they went on the medical out process from the military. They had some stress problems dealing with with combat, and now all of a sudden they're in the database. They can't no longer ever own or buy a gun. This would now give them a process to make sure they could get their gun rights back, and that's really important.
Yeah, and what's happened is some of these veterans come back, and they suffer either from PTSD or just depression or whatever. And if at some point they told somebody in the VA, I'm just having trouble like with my finances, or they'll ask them, how you doing with your finances? Well, I'm having a little trouble managing them. That's enough right there. They write it down, and that person is prohibited from owning a gun for life.
With no way, and Tom, with no way to ever change it. This would be able to get them a way to be able to get that off their record and be able to own a firearm again. And that's really, really important. Also, what's really important is right now, if a gun dealer goes, sells a gun, does the background check on the people, he's got protection from civil and criminal lawsuits. He's got immunity. This would allow individual citizens like you and I and other gun owners, if we sell a gun to somebody and they misused it and we went did the background check, we would have the same immunity as well, and nobody could sue us civilly in court, and the government could come after you and criminally prosecute you.
So let me ask you this. This is the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, and basically the Citizens Committee's lobbyist was involved, it sounds like, at every step of this. How did that come about? How'd you get in the room?
Let me be honest about it. We basically came up with a lot of the ideas for all these good things to go into a bill to help, both protect gun rights and extend gun rights. And then the idea was to get it into the bills. Some of this, quite frankly, Manchin and Toomey picked up and from our memos and put in, and some of it we had to sit down directly and help write parts and tweak parts of it. So our hand was in it on a couple levels. I
got to think that Schumer's not real happy about this.
Well, Schumer was. Let's put it this way: we're not exactly on speaking terms with Senator Schumer. He was not involved in any of our negotiations at all. We didn't sit down with him at all because obviously we have a hard time trusting in Senator Schumer. Manchin and Toomey senators are A-rated by the NRA. They're solidly 100% pro-gun. They're trying to do the right thing. The bill is renamed, by the way. It's now called Public Safety and Second Amendment Rights Protection Act. So the bottom line here is we gained a whole lot by sitting down and being at the table rather than being obstinate and not participating at all. We're able to help craft this so that quite frankly, I think is probably one of the best pro-gun pieces of legislation we're going to come out of Congress in years.
What about restoration of rights for people who've lost their rights over the years for a felony conviction? There used to be a way that you could apply and try to get that back, and then the funding went away. I think it was under Clinton, and it never came back.
It went away under Clinton when Congressman Schumer was in Congress before he was in the Senate. It was his bill that did it to us. Now, one of the problems is that, Manchin and Toomey, to get this in as a substitute for Schumer's thing, it can only go so far directly with the language at this juncture, but we have an agreement from Manchin and Toomey that there will be an amendment on the floor to this bill as well that will then allow the funding to go back so that, in fact, people can get their gun rights restored for everybody.
Okay. You got to know that there are a lot of gun owners. And look, we always talk about we've got our own radicals, they've got their radicals, and we've got the guys way out on the fridge. There got to be a lot of people who are going to look at this and say, you caved in, you're working with the enemy. All the stuff they're going to say.
You're right, but you have to lead and you have to do what's right. And this is definitely right. It extends gun rights, it protects gun rights. At the same time, you and I know, and quite frankly, Manchin and Toomey know, that background check isn't going to stop crazy people and violent criminals from getting guns. But quite frankly, it'll make it one step harder, and it'll also protect gun shows so that gun shows will no longer ever be under attack. You might want to call this Gun Show Protection Act at the same time, because no longer can you attack a gun show. So I find this to be really important. I agree with the people, on our side that are going to think you is against any kind of background check no matter what, and so they're not going to be happy with it. But if you stop and think about it, you really gave up virtually nothing. You got protection that's not a registry. You got penalties in there if anybody tries to create one. And look at all the things we just got back. And not only that, I mean, Schumer's going to have to, at this point, eat the fact that he's going to lose the restoration argument finally after all these years, and and cave in and give us all these other goodies. There'll be other amendments for the floor as well. I mean, there are going to be other people sponsoring amendments that might give us reciprocity and might give us other things. And then we're going to get recorded votes. We'll know who the bad guys are. At this point, if in fact they don't give us what we want, and the bill is written, with other bad stuff attached to it that we don't want, well, we then walk away from it, and we're going to be able to kill it, and the bill will then just die. So either we're going to get it our way, or it doesn't happen at all.
Obviously, we've got a lot of cutouts or exemptions in this bill, this Manchin-Toomey bill. Of course, there are people, I know you've heard this, who said, but there were exemptions in the Brady bill, for instance, and eventually they ended up calling those exemptions loopholes. Is that our future? Are we going to look at this and years from now they're going to be saying, you've got the private party loophole, and you've got this loophole, and we've got to close all those?
Well, I'm sure the anti-gunners are always going to do things like that and push for stuff like that. If we had this bill or didn't have this bill, they're still going to do that no matter what.
That's
the
true.
Bottom line, though, is that we make gains with this bill. We gain ground. We don't really lose ground. And, they're not going to go away. Our enemies are still going to be out there. There are no two ways about that. We know that. But the bottom line here is that we put them on the defensive. We're on the offense. And we just reversed everything. And I sure would rather fight to win rather than just enjoy the fight.
Boy, I hope people heard what you just said, because there are, and I have believed this for a long time, there are some folks, probably on both sides, honestly, who just like the fight. And as long as they can continue the fight, they're happy as they can be. As opposed to some of us who say, the important thing here is to win, not to fight.
Yes, that's totally. I couldn't have said it any better, Tom. And this here puts us in a position to be able to fight to win. And I think that's what's really, really important here. And quite honestly, I think the other side, the concern I've got, quite frankly, is the other side is going to realize that we've basically got them snared in a trap. And what's going to happen is they're going to walk away from it. But then again, if they walked away from it, they killed it all. We didn't.
Are you saying that we're now in a position where we're either going to get a good bill or no bill?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And we also have the House as a firewall. If the Senate doesn't give us a good bill, there's no way the House is going to go with it. And on top of that, we might even make it even better when it gets to the House. So we got the momentum if we play it right. And it's called fighting smart. Okay,
question here. Obviously, the NRA has been known. The NRA has been known as the folks who work on the Hill.